Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode here with me, Matthew Lastalia. Today I'm going to be doing an episode that's all about why people are quitting, right? And so I wanted to take a look. I wanted to go back a little bit in the past and see what were the reasons people were quitting before the pandemic, and what are the reasons people are saying that they are quitting now during the pandemic or towards the end. So I found a couple of research studies, one from Gallup that was conducted in 2018 that gave a top 6 for this, and another one from Pew Research study that conducted a survey in 2021 as to the top reasons why people were voluntarily quitting their jobs. And I think that this is particularly important right now because of the quantum leap that we're experiencing when it comes to people that are quitting, people that are voluntarily leaving their jobs. So, for those of you that aren't familiar, like I said, my name is Matthew Lastalia. I am the founder and chief talent strategist here at Resilient Talent Solutions. This is a company that I actually founded. That's the purpose is to bridge the gap between CEOs and what CEOs want and what employees want, right? What businesses want and what their talent wants. I think that in the recent years, the desires of the employees have really started to evolve. They started to transform from what we've been experiencing essentially from the start of our modern working society, really ever. Like we're making a shift, and not a shift to unknown territory, but a shift that we haven't seen in the workforce, to my knowledge, ever, which I think is actually pretty cool. But it can also be very frustrating for businesses that aren't recognizing why this is taking place, and that's kind of the reason I wanted to talk about this today. And it's the reason why I wanted to start this business, is because I believe that the workforce is shifting into what I see as the third rung of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And that this has to be the new baseline for organizations who are in the hunt to not only find and not only attract and acquire new talent, but to actually keep that talent there, right? And interestingly enough, keeping talent in your organization, taking the steps and the actions to keep quality teammates, team members in your organization is the same kind of actions and activities and really the underlying philosophies that are going to attract that talent that you want to bring to your organization as well. So it's kind of beautiful in a sense that you don't have to do two different lines of effort. If you take one well thought out line of effort, you can really make a big difference in this part of your organization. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to help. So I wanted to, like I said, today we're going to talk about the quit rates. They have been skyrocketing, right, over the past 2 years, and particularly since November of 2021, where we saw something like 4.53 million people quit their jobs. And essentially we've been hovering in the mid 4.3, 4.5 region for like the last 6-7 months at this point, which is pretty incredible. The good news is that, we have data now that we can use to answer the big question, whether the reasons for people quitting over time have changed or not. Is there an evolution in the reason why people are leaving? And as I posited, in the intro, I think that there is a new subtle baseline that's being established there, but let's actually hear from the people. This is my theory and this is what I'm operating based off of, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. We should always go back to empirical data. We should try to go and do some real fact finding, and that's what I did, because I always want to challenge my assumptions and my hypotheses, and so that's what we're going to do today. But first, in order to before we dive into the actual results from the survey and we find out what the people are saying, I really wanted to dive into a little practical exercise when it came to addressing the why, right? Why are people quitting now? Why, like, what are the reasons that we think? What are we postulating? What have we been hearing that people have been saying, kind of in the ether, like just through news articles and different organizations that are covering this? What have the narratives that have been crafted? What are those saying? And for the ones that I've been hearing, just kind of like from my circles and what I've found just reading non statistically based articles online, what I am seeing is that remote work is a huge one, right? So there's like the mass adoption of remote work that is playing a big part. And why is that? And what is being talked about is that people are being able to apply for and be hired into positions that they are not geographically tied to, right? So basically, I'm here in the middle of Indiana, but if I found a job that was willing to hire me remotely that's in New York City or in Los Angeles, and they're willing to have me work full-time remotely, I can do that. And so people that are there that would be opting for the job now have more competition in the fact that other people are able to go in there and kind of compete with them. But also it means that I can leave my smaller nexus of job opportunities that I'm surrounded by here, in not a major hub or city of Terre Haute, and I can look elsewhere, right? I can look out around the world. And actually, interestingly, I kind of fall into this category. Not exactly. So I was in the military for 11, just over 11 years. And when I was getting separated, I was actually getting medically separated because I had an injury from when I was airborne. I had a nasty fall, herniated some discs, and that's not really conducive to the very large rucksack carrying and running and basic soldiering, right? You got to be able to do that stuff. So couldn't really do that so much anymore. They did a really great job of working with me. I actually stayed in the Army for like 7 or 8, maybe even 9 years after the injury, because I was able to work with them and try to find a way, and it just, it progressed to the point where it wasn't going to work out. So we were kind of in agreement that the Army was like, you can't really do this anymore. And I was like, I can't really do it anymore. So it was time for me to move on. And when I did, I was able to catch a position with this software company that's based out of London. And it was a remote gig. And this was and it was actually, I started interning with them in April of 2020. So like right when COVID was hitting. And so they weren't, and so this is, like I said, my story kind of falls a little bit out of the perfect narrative because one, I wasn't voluntarily quitting, even though I was the one that submitted the packet. We don't need to go into the details there. It's not pertinent to what's going on. I'm just saying it's not a perfect match. And also they were offering this remote position prior to COVID. So they were a business that was already looking to hire somebody remotely prior to COVID kicking off. But they did cancel their lease on their building, where all the people were working in person. And so everyone there was working remote full time. And occasionally they'd get together for drinks. That was it. Okay, but that was one, right? Remote work. Another one was vaccines. Vaccine mandates was another one that I heard a lot about. People were wanting to quit, or there was a lot of talk of people wanting to quit. I don't know. I never actually saw numbers on this. But this is one where I really felt like it kind of came and went. You know what I mean? And it's probably just because the mandates didn't end up going through. And so when that got held up by the district courts, I don't remember which one, but yeah, when that didn't end up taking place, it seemed like that kind of narrative fell apart. But that was one that was floating around. And then there's another kind of I the way that I wrote this down, the way when I was thinking, working on this show and this episode, I was thinking about, I wrote down childcare and work environment, right? And so childcare is it's like a one example of kind of external requirements impacting, external requirements and time and, and care of children, and then the financial, requirements that come hand in hand with that. And so so anything else that falls into that category is kind of where this is where I'm coming from. But childcare is typically the one that always comes up, which I get because I got kids and they're all school age, so that's helpful until summer comes around. But yeah, so this also actually it feeds a bit into the remote work. Oftentimes people end up feeling like they're stuck in their positions before the pandemic and before remote work was really, adapted en masse. And they were kind of compelled financially to stay with the consistency of the paycheck that they knew was coming in with their company. Even though they were struggling, it's like they were struggling, but they knew that struggle, and they're like, okay, well, this sucks, but I know this suck, and I'm too scared to venture out to see what a different kind of suck is. And so when places started to shut down, and then opportunities started to pop up for remote work, then the dynamic started to shift. And when certain places that they were working at were in this kind of unique situation where, you're working at a place and then, COVID, we hit the mass hysteria in the beginning, and then we respond and everyone goes home, and the people that can remote work are remote working. And then, if you have this scenario where people are, things are starting to kind of calm down, people can go back in. Businesses were wanting people to come back in, and some people were like, "Nah, I'm good," and that could be for numerous reasons. It could have been for safety concerns. It could have been because of the factors that I'm talking about in this case, where you're alleviating a lot of the stresses if you're home. You don't have to. Your kids can be home, and you don't have to pay for childcare, and so that's a huge saver. And then it also goes hand in hand with, like I said, I put childcare and environmental factors, like work environmental factors such as like a toxic work environment, working around people that you don't really enjoy or appreciate. Guess what? You don't have to really deal with that anymore. I got a Zoom meeting here, MS Teams meeting there, and that's it. And so that eliminated a lot of those stressors and those things for people. And so those were kind of the ones that I saw that were circulating the most, just in my circles and kind of what I was seeing. But let's dive into the numbers, shall we? Right? Let's do that. So what I found, okay, so let's start with 2018, right? So this is the Gallup poll from 2018. And what this showed was, I'm going to work my way from like the lowest to the top. So this was 6. So we had the 2% of the population. And again, this is based off a sample survey. So, take it for what it's worth. Gallup's typically pretty good, I think. So, but 2% of the respondents said that job security was a reason that they were voluntarily leaving their jobs, right? Which is interesting. So it's a sense of like, I'm not secure in this job. I'm leaving because I probably found another job that was a little bit more secure, and I didn't really have to worry about whether or not I was going to be laid off. And then inflexibility was laid on as number 5, and that was 8%. And so that was people's inability to get kind of changes and change working hours, and maybe to go to the doctor during business hours and stuff like that. Just the kind of flexibility that you would kind of hope that comes with a job, so that you can also do your adulting and parenting stuff as well. And then we have management/environment, which is super interesting. And this is where it jumps up. So over doubles. So there was 2% for job security, 8% for inflexibility, 17% for management and environment. All right, that's pretty big. It's a pretty big one, right? And so there's basically people are saying like, I don't like the way that this place is run, and this is almost 20% of the people that felt this way. Again, this is 2018. That was number 4. Number 3, yes, that's correct. Number 3, lack of fit to the job. Now, so this is actually really important. I'm glad that there was a distinction here, because I could have seen management and environment being lack of fit for the job. But the fact that they broke this up into 2 different categories, people had options, right? And so people were selecting one or the other. And so with management and environment, people weren't saying that, I didn't really fit in with them there. It just wasn't really like my kind of groove. They're like, I was not good. Like it was bad, right? And so that's a whole different problem set than lack of fit. And you'll get into a job and you're like, you know what? This isn't the job isn't what I thought it was going to be. This isn't the right fit. Like I just thought it was going to be different, which is, we're going to get into this, but it's a very controllable factor that you can really manipulate or amend and adjust as a leader and as a supervisor. Here I am, all unprofessional with my phone making sounds and stuff. How dare I? How dare I? So, okay, so that was number 3. Number 2 from 2018 Gallup survey review was pay and benefits combined as 22%. Oh, and I don't think I gave you the numbers for the last one. Lack of fit to job was over 20% by a little bit, 20.2%. So it's 1/5. 1 out of 5 people that quit their jobs said it was because it was a lack of fit. Almost 1 out of 5 people left because of poor management and inhospitable environments. 22% because pay and benefits. And so that's a tough one, because that's what you were hired for pay and benefits. So if you're voluntarily leaving, it means that you got another job. So this would be best if they were able to go a little bit deeper into these questions and say, were you able to find, did you leave your industry, right? Did you do a whole new career field where you were able to get better pay and benefits? Or were you able to find another competitor? So say you were a sales rep at REI, and then you were making, I don't know, $70,000 a year. And then you were able to find a job offer from, what's another sports place? I don't know, Finish Line or something that's not comparable. But at any rate, you get the idea. You get an offer from somebody that's in the same industry doing the same job. You're gonna be a sales rep there for $85,000, a year. If anything, those situations would probably flipped around if that were the case. But I digress. So I'm just saying that would be good to know. That'd be good information to have. All we know is it says pay and benefits for the reasons they voluntarily quit. So, and then number 1 and numero uno for this, for leaving your job as of 2018. So this is just before the pandemic kicked off, a year or so. So, they said no advancement opportunities, right? So this is huge, because this is pretty well founded in a lot of the industrial and organizational psychology that a lot of the talent managers and HR people should be well versed in if they are not. A lot of them do have degrees there, which is good and important. But it's pretty well established that, being able to advance, being able to see a challenge, go after the challenge, take it on, and then overcome it. That's huge. It makes there's a motivational factor, where you are achieving, you are feeling what you achieve, right? Like you have something set out, you have a goal, you work hard, you work consistently, and then you do what you need to do and you get to that next level. And then there's like a new level of a new problem set almost. And so there's a lot of embedded stuff in there too, between novelty and skill challenge and things like that. There's a lot of psychology there. And so it's not terribly surprising to me that this was number one. But this is 2018, right? So let us shift to now, to 2021. Again, obviously this is 2022, but can't really get data for why people quit in 2022 until the year's over, right? So 2021 is the best we got. That's what we're going to roll with. So this was top 10. They gave us a little bit more, and the way they conducted their survey was a little bit different. They actually gave a, so they gave the list of the top 10, and it was broken down. They had the, like, as reasons listed, and they had major reason and minor reason, and then they kind of took a mathematical equation from those to come up with like the average percentage. That's probably not the right term. I'm not great at statistics. I'm taking statistics right now. So I'm getting better. But it doesn't really matter. The point is that number 10, and what I'm going to do is I will give you the numbers for the top 10, and I will give you the kind of aggregated percentage, and I'll give you the like the level of like primary concern that this was, like how it was listed for a major impact, and not a minor one. So it's like this is the main reason why they left. Right. So number 10 was too few hours, coming in at aggregated 30%. And for people's major concern, it was 16%. Number 9, too many hours, right? So like, to me, this all goes into the flexibility, right? And so how many times do people shift back and forth between there? But at any rate, there's interestingly enough, that's kind of might not be the case because of another one that we'll see here in a second. So too few hours, number 10, at 16% for people's major, that was the major reason why they left. Major reason people left, too many hours they were working, was 20%. Inability to relocate. Now this is interesting. 22%. 22% of respondents said that a major reason why they quit their job was an inability to relocate. That is terribly interesting to me. That is a huge difference between the 2018 and the 2021 results. So that's pretty cool. Moving on though, we'll dive into this stuff. So benefits, this is an interesting thing too, is that they actually separated pay and benefits. So benefits was 10, 9, 8, 7, 10. Yep, 7th. I got it. I can do math. See, check me out. Benefits was 23% major reason, 43% aggregated, but 23% of respondents said that a major reason why they quit their jobs was not the benefits were not good enough. And then looking at number 6, inflexible hours, right? And so this was different. So they really did suss out the difference between too few hours, too many hours, and inflexible hours. So this is, people wanted the ability to adjust their working hours. And now who knows the reason? Maybe it was, maybe they wanted to work 40-hour work weeks, but maybe they wanted to be able to move those around. Maybe you have events that you need to participate in, especially with kids in school or appointments and what have you. And if you had the ability to say, okay, well, I gotta take 3 hours off this afternoon, but I can come and do more work this evening. And if you're not doing something that's dependent on time frames, like that would be hard to do in certain sales gigs if you are, especially business to business, because if you're reaching out to people, then in a business, then you need to kind of be able to get a hold of them during business hours. So that'd be hard to make up there. So, I mean, I think that's part of it, reasons and jobs like that. Bumping up to 4 is childcare issues, right? And that was one of the ones that I had actually thrown out there as things that I had been hearing. And so that's not surprising. That was 24%. So inflexible hours and childcare issues were actually both 24% of respondents said that those were major issues for why they were quitting. Now, here's a new one, kind of, I think. Disrespected at work, right? That was 50% aggregated. 35% of respondents said that was a major reason why they quit, because they felt disrespected at work. That's a very specific claim. Kind of general. I mean, specific compared to the last one. Like the best. We'll do an alignment check here in a second. As soon as I get done with all these, we'll align them, and then we're gonna break it down a little bit. That was number 3, 35%. Man, 35% of people. That's quite a bit. That's quite a bit. Moving on. Second, number two of 2021. The top reasons why people voluntarily left their jobs. This was, again, Pew Research. So number 2, no advancement. No advancement opportunities. There it is again. So we can see how important that is to people. Disrespected at work. Number 3, no advancement. Number 2. And that was, interestingly, so the way that they ranked these was actually based off of the aggregated between the majors and the minors. So this was 63% aggregated, but it was actually 33% major issues. So as a major issue is actually lower than disrespected at work, but there were so many people that had put that in as minor issues that it actually bumped it up. So that's really interesting that no advancement made its way really high on the list, but not necessarily as a major issue. So that's interesting. Number one reason why people left their jobs, 2021. Pay. Money. Gotta get that green, baby. And so I actually have a very interesting take on this. So this was, we'll get into that, like I said, in a second. This was 63%, so it was actually tied for the aggregated amount with no advancement. So those were kind of tied for number 1. But it outshot it by 4% in the major side, right? In the major reason. So it was 37% of respondents said that this was a major contributing factor to them voluntarily quitting their jobs in the year 2021. Oh, you know what? I missed the bottom one because it was on the next page of my notes. The bottom one was actually another one we talked about. It was vaccine mandates. Vaccine mandates, 18% aggregated number of people quitting their jobs voluntarily in 2021. 8% of respondents said that they quit primarily or as a major factor, as a major result of vaccine mandates. So that's not insignificant. It's almost 10% of people. So that's, I said it came and went, but it definitely came. You know, the proof's in the pudding. Almost 10% of people said that they quit. So let us look at the alignment. Where do these line up? So I don't know if you guys were writing or taking notes, but assuming that you're just enjoying yourself and having a good time, I did it for you. So an alignment check. So working myself from the bottom to the top, the alignments that I found were flexibility, right? And so this was like kind of hours, too many hours, not enough hours, inflexible hours, combined with, with inflexibility. That was put in the first one. So that came in, and I basically did these in the top 4. So flexibility came in at 4th, management/environmental. And I did this with disrespect. I kind of called those the same because I think it's, well, I guess it really covers. I was going to say, I don't think that people would quit their jobs because of their co-workers being disrespectful. It would be more likely because of their managers. But the fact that the previous survey had discussed, the Gallup in 2018 talked about management and environment. It kind of covers both of those. And so I think that's a good alignment, because I think if you are working around a group of people that are generally disrespectful of, you and or things that you believe in, even if it's not to you directly. I could see that being, if you had an opportunity somewhere else, why would you stay? And so I did this by working out the averages of like their placements on each one, and then kind of averaging them together. And so I had number 2 being pay and benefits, and then number 1 being lack of opportunities of advancement. So those are the alignments, and I have the outliers kind of being fit to job, which could be tied in there as well, and then job security, which could also fit under management and environment, and then vaccine stuff, which is that is a pure pandemic specific reality that we had to deal with. So what's the takeaway, right? What do we do with this information? It's cool, right? Like I went through and I read all these studies and I read these surveys and I got the information and we talked about it, and we figured out what the alignment was. And now we can kind of see that there's, there are alignments between 2018 and 2021. And so what does that mean? What does it mean that there's alignments? I want to look at this from 2 perspectives, right? So I'm going to give you kind of a strategic, big picture, 30,000 foot above ground level view of the problem set. And I wanted to with each one, I wanted to take a more tactical approach. So a strategic approach and a tactical approach to each one of these. And kind of ways that you can think about the problem within your organization and the ways that you can actually take steps to mitigate these as being reasons why people are leaving. Now, before I get into the strategic and tactical approaches to addressing these within your organization, I wanted to first make a recommendation to you guys. And this is not to be confused with an ad. I'm inspired to do this by listening and watching to podcasts who like run ads. But what I wanted to do is I don't want to run ads on the show. What I want to do is I want to do free promotions for things that I truly believe in, that I participate in, that I actually do, that I think will be beneficial for you guys. So the one I wanted to recommend, and these are going to vary, right? So I'm going to do like one each episode, and the one I wanted to do this time was based on more of the business side of the house and networking. There's other ones I'm going to be talking about that'll be like physical fitness and books and articles and podcasts and stuff like that. Just stuff that I think that's interesting, that I think that you guys would also find interesting. So today's recommendation is the Nomad Network. And this is an amazing group of human beings, right? They're entrepreneurs, artists, leaders in their industries. It's people that come together to share their knowledge and support each other as they continue to work on their businesses. This is especially for like aspiring entrepreneurs. So if you're out there and you're kind of aspiring, you're building up, and especially you're looking at how to create a team, or you've got a small team together, this is really good for you guys. And the beautiful thing here is it's its own social network. So it doesn't come with any of the burdens or negative connotations that come with some of the other social media landscape and companies that are out there right now. It's on its whole own ecosystem of sorts. And so if you wanted to check that out, I can't recommend it enough. Check it out at nomadnetwork.app. Nomad, Nomad network.app. Again, this is not a sponsor of the show. This is simply something that I believe brings true value and a sense of community for like-minded individuals that are looking to work on their business. So I think it's great, and it's completely free. There's no gimmicky stuff there. It's just truly people that are there to just help each other, and really a lot of it's just kind of fun banter among fellow business professionals. And I think that can be something that we're missing, especially in this day of COVID, fallout in the pandemic and what have you. So back to the show, shall we? So both the strategic and the tactical perspectives, they're going to align the concept of kind of leadership and management. It's going to be kind of the focus. And so the strategic, we'll break this down. We'll go through each one of the top 4, and we will look at it from a strategic and a tactical level. So starting at numero 4, right? which should be flexibility. Right. So this, actually, you know what? We're going to flip it. We're going to work our way down on this one. I want to start with number 1 and we'll go down. Because these are all super important. Obviously they've lasted kind of the test of time in the sense of that they were there pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. If you call it right now post-pandemic, don't read too far into that. I just mean currently with where we're at right now. So, lack of opportunities. That's where we're going to start. To address this, we have to first look at the why. Like, why is this important to people? Why do people care about the advancement of opportunities and opportunities for advancement? And some focal points of this can be on the financial benefits, right? As you get promoted, as you get advanced, then you get more pay. And, who doesn't want a little bit more financial security and a little bit more breathing room and, the ability to buy a little bit nicer stuff? Who doesn't want that? It just feels good to get to a point where you don't have to think about, modulating your grocery trip because you're getting paid enough. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be like, oh, I'd like to be able to buy these groceries over here too. And I just, I gotta wait till the next paycheck. So let's just get kind of some of the staples and we can make our way by, right? That's rough. So getting up to the next point is huge for people. And a lot of people see that, the only way to get there is through, promotions. And others might be looking more for, they might be looking for status. They might be looking for, to be able to say, I am the VP of sales and marketing, or whatever. And others still might be looking for opportunities to lead and collaborate and to design and things like that, and to do the management side. A lot of people want to like to think like, I want to manage, but a lot of people say I want to lead, which are very different things. Textbook leadership falls under management. I just see them as two kind of different spheres that have overlap, Venn diagram style. Not going to dive into the specifics of that today, however. So when we're looking at addressing this from a strategic level, you really want to think about this whenever you're bringing people on. So if you've already have an organization with a lot of people and you haven't been doing this, it's okay. It's not a huge deal. But you really should, in your future campaigns and when you're thinking about filling positions that have limited or no advancement opportunities, you or your sub-leaders or whoever's responsible for making the job postings and whoever's responsible for actually conducting the interviews, you really need to be clear about this. Like, there's no reason to beat around the bush. I would dare to say that it is an ethical and moral stance to take to say that you should be straightforward to say, like, hey, listen, this job is going to pay this amount, and it's not like we're not looking to progress people to VP of sales. Like, you're going to come here, you're going to be a salesperson, and these are your opportunities while you're here. It might not be great maybe it's a second interview thing, you know what I mean? Like, but it should be incorporated in some sense. Hopefully people are smart enough to be asking these questions, but sometimes people are just too excited about job opportunities and they don't think about it until they get there. And that's not an obstacle that needs to be left on the road later on. When they get there and they're like, and they start working, they work for a couple of weeks and they're like, okay, I'm really starting to get this and I see how the system works. And like, now what do I need to do in order to make it up to the next notch? Not saying that they think that they're going to get promoted in the next, couple of months, but it's something that's like, okay, well, if I know the system and I understand that it's okay, I these are the things I need to do in order to get here, in order to get to that spot, even if it's 3-4 years down the road. Let me make sure I'm doing those things. Let me make sure I'm working on the skills that are necessary in order to hit those marks. And if I don't have that, it's kind of hard to, you don't have that framework to work within to know that, like, you're progressing, you're getting better, other than, especially if you're looking at sales, like, my numbers are good and they're still really good and I'm competitive amongst the teams and there we go. But it's like, you lose that sense of novelty, like I was talking about earlier. You lose that sense of there's something new and there's a new problem set and all of this. And so you want to be clear, right? You want to let people know that this is the position, you're going to be doing this, and your outlook for this is this many years, whatever. And then, because what happens then is, they get down, they get in, they get excited, and they get there, and then they find out that there's no opportunities for growth, and then it almost becomes like an unnecessary obstacle that you left on the road. That's like, it's on the road, like a couple miles up, and like you just, hey, they'll get to it when they get to it, and we'll deal with it when they come to it. But like, no, man, just like let them know, like, hey, there's this obstacle up ahead. It's there. I want to be straightforward with you. I want to let you know, because transparency and honesty is important. I'm doing this as a vote to my, as a testament to my belief in that, and I hope that it's reciprocated, that you feel comfortable to be honest with us about what's going on with you. And it may, it's not, it doesn't sound particularly fun, because it's not, because you never want to not sell people in the position. When you're looking to hire somebody, you're looking to bring somebody on. There's a reason, you have a demand, you have a need that's not being met, and so you need to bring people on in order to do that. But you should be real with people, and that is a good moral and ethical stance to take. So do with it what you will. Hopefully you do with it and not without it. Now, tactically, now there's not necessarily always a path to promotion for everyone, but that doesn't mean that you can't generate opportunities for people to step up and perform in new and exciting and challenging ways to create that sense of novelty and that kind of thrill of having something new to do. You want to look for those opportunities to challenge your talent, challenge your employees with, and find ways to get tangible results that are associated with that task, right? You don't just want a pat on the back and a name on the wall like employee of the month. Like, now listen, do those things for sure. Do those things, but that's not enough. That's not enough. That's old thinking. That's not flowing with the transformation, like we talked about, of the workforce's mindset in the workplace anymore. So it's those still matter. And it's still important for you to acknowledge good work and to be specific about it. But it's not enough. And so you want to be able to tie the quality of their performance with the business outcomes, and then you can even personalize it to them, right? Like, so some people might need help with childcare, and some people might not. Some people might not have kids. And so these are types of tangible rewards and stuff that you can give for them. But I wanted to dive into an example, right? So I kind of wrote this up for a sales rep. So the obvious go-to for a sales rep when it comes to, this idea is, you set up a target number for them to hit each quarter. And then when they do so, they get a financial bonus, right? Like, okay, cool. Like, you sold 10,000 units. And so now you get, $25,000 bonus. Whatever. It's just, you guys get it. This can work. And it does work. There's a reason that people continue to do it, but there's also a reason we're seeing people quit their jobs a lot. And it's because this is really missing some key elements that are really readily available that address additional issues on the list of why people quit, right? As we go down, you'll see how these apply into the other ones as well. So one of the things you could do is you could actually assign people to a team where they're working towards a collaborative goal, right? So don't make individual goals, make collaborative goals, set up teams. Use your sub leaders, right? Like, delegate. If you're spread out across the world, or you're spread out across the country and you have a bunch of different divisions, cool. Like, apply this as appropriate. Like, but just, so if you have sub leaders that are running teams and managers and stuff, then use those people and say, hey, like, this is what I would like to see. I'd like to see teamwork. I'd like to see us emphasize that. I'm structuring incentives based on teams, and let's see what we can do with that. And then they can build the teams. Like, you guys build the teams however you want. So, but a way that you could do is they build a team, and let's say that every quarter you could do a rotating team kind of a thing where maybe you keep the same. Maybe you have teams of 5 people, or let's make it easy. Let's say there's teams of 4 people, and every quarter that team has one person inside the team be the leader. So the leader for that quarter. And then that quarter's over. Okay, cool. Assess the results. Look at what you guys did. Now we're going to shift it. Somebody else in the group is going to be the leader. And that's a way that you put these people in different positions of leadership and different styles and approaches. They get to try things out while getting counseling and mentoring from those subordinate leaders of yours, their senior leaders. But and then those, again, this is, you got to be doing this too, right? Like you got to be counseling your leaders as they're counseling their team members. Otherwise, none of this really works. So, but you might have some. What this does, when you do this, is that this allows people to really leverage their strengths, right? And people can kind of volunteer those up in the group. And you might be more comfortable to do that because you're not dealing with your leaders. You're not saying, well, I'm not really great at cold calling. So like, you don't really, if you're in sales, you don't really want to tell that in the business of cold calling. You don't really want to tell that to your, evaluating leader. So, but you might be more comfortable telling that to your group, like to your group leader. And they're like, okay, well, you know what we could actually do is that we could have these two people do cold calls. We could have this person do demand generation, and this person is really great at closing. And so after we get those calls in, we're going to shift them over to this person, and they're gonna close, right? So you're gonna create some generation. You're gonna create some demand. We're gonna be calling folks cold. And this person's going to be closing everything, right? And maybe at the end of the first month, they're like, this didn't work at all. Like, we've got to really look at what's going on. Or it did work great, and this is sustained, But you're giving them the latitude to be able to operate in a way that they are, they're responsible for the ones for their own production and for their own output. And the cool thing is that this actually addresses the fourth one, flexibility, as well, because within these groups you have the ability to work it out in your team. Like, hey, listen, we got our targets. We're gonna set up a schedule. Like, if the team ends up saying, we'll dive more into this later, when we get into the flexibility. I want to jump too far ahead of myself. So, but what it does, at the end of this, it gives these people the opportunity to feel what it's like to lead. It gives them leadership experience and responsibilities. And another example of what you could do actually in this. So that's one thing you want to do, but maybe you don't want to do that. So there's another kind of more outside the box approach you could take on a tactical level, which is you could look at internal training opportunities, create opportunities for people to train each other, and maybe you assign like, okay, well, every month there's going to be a person, or maybe there's going to be a little team that is assigned a book or a podcast to listen to, or some articles to read, some business research to do. And they're going to take their findings, they're going to take the strategies from the book, strategies from the podcasts, whatever, and they're going to aggregate that, and they're going to redirect the energy of that and apply it to the business, and they'll kind of do a presentation on it. All right, and so that gives them a chance to develop further expertise, to understand the industry better, to understand leadership, mentorship, and collaboration better through these research opportunities, and then to share those concepts with everyone else, which gives everyone else the opportunity to learn, and it creates that sense of novelty, that kind of secret sauce, that extra juice that really gets people motivated. And it lets them know that you're invested in their future as well, even if there's not a direct link towards advancement in position in any near future. Now, shifting to number 2, pay and benefits. It's an interesting one in the survey because they broke it up in one to the other. But looking at this, the strategic strategies that you could take are, there's an interesting view that you could kind of look at when it comes to the military and how they structured pay and everything, and how they make it, they use pay in such a way that makes it hard for people to and there was a hummingbird just outside the window. That's pretty cool. Sorry for the squirrel, or I guess bird. My inner dog's coming out, but it literally just flew up right behind the camera. There's a window right behind you guys, and a hummingbird just sat there and just looking right at me, just like, hey, what's up? That was pretty cool. A little insight into the, breaking down the fourth wall here. Anyway, so so the army, right? The way that they do it, the way that they like kind of encourage people to stick around is by making them feel very uncomfortable leaving, and they do that through pay. In the way that they structure the pay. So everyone, based on your rank and your time in service, gets a certain amount of pay, right? A private straight into the army gets very little amount every month. But them and the senior officers, they had their pay broken down this way. And this is not going to include every single type of entitlement or allotment that comes to all soldiers. It's the basic ones that go essentially to everyone. There's 3 ways that they get money. There's BAH, BAS, and basic pay allowance. So you have 3 allowances. One is the BAH is a basic allowance for housing. The BAS is a basic allowance for, I think it's sustenance. It's for food. And then there's your base pay. Like this is just your pay for working. So the allowance for food was something like $300-$400. So there was no illusion as to like, this is going to pay all of your food stuff. It's like, this helps offset the cost for food. Like we're paying you. This is what your pay is. But because we care about you, we want to make sure that we give you this extra money for food, like, cause we're thinking about you and your ability to eat. And then, you know what? We want to make sure that you have enough to be able to pay for housing. And so we want to look at where you're at, and let's give you a rate based off of the zip code of the base that you're stationed at, and then you'll get that every month, right? And so this actually saves them a ton of money because they're able to, they're able to use a value kind of structure behind it that says, we care about you. We're giving you money for food. And they don't have to actually worry about giving you enough money to pay for all your food. They're like, look, you're getting paid, and then you get this money for food. Barely anything, especially for a family. But it's something, and it's there, and it's specifically there for food, so that's cool. And then but the housing's the big one, and that's, for instance, this is how much you could change. So when I was stationed at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, which for those who are not familiar, that is very close to, it's Northern Virginia, very close to the DC. It's like I think it's technically within the NCR, the National Capital Region. And so my BAH as a staff sergeant and sergeant first class was something like $2,500 ish, right? Just under that, I think. $2,500 a month just for paying for housing, because it's how expensive housing was around that base. Now compare that to when I was stationed at Fort Stewart, Georgia, which was like 45 minutes southwest of Savannah, kind of in the middle of nowhere. That was like $1,700 a month, maybe $1,200, something not very much. Okay, is the point comparatively, but it matched the cost of housing around that area. And so I was like, okay, well, I got this for housing. And the cool thing about that is like, if you live on post, they just take it. If you live in base housing, they just took the money. So for private businesses, it's not really an option. You guys aren't really like providing housing that people could just live in, but people can choose to do with that what they want. And so could soldiers. If you lived off post, then you could choose to live in a dump and bank money, or you could choose to max it out and get the most bang for your buck when it comes to like quality of house and space and that stuff. And so I've saw people do both. I've actually done both of those things. And so, but you give people the kind of freedom to be able to operate within there, but you're giving them, again, it's like, whoa, man, they're not only are they giving me pay, but they're giving me money for food, and they're giving me money for housing. And for me, I was airborne, so I got like, while I was airborne, I got money like hazardous duty pay, which was like $150 a month. $150. So I was paid to jump out of airplanes. So, extra 150. Woo woo. But yeah, anyway. The point is that, you could model, like, businesses could do this. Like, you could really model your stuff based off this. You're like, hey, you know what? We want to offset the cost of your living, so we're going to give you this much money for, housing benefits, and we want to make sure you're taken care of. Like, we want to make sure that you can feed your family. So you know what, we're going to give you a stipend, an extra allowance that's for food, right? And that's going to go on top of your base pay. It's going to go on, don't worry about it. It's going to go on top of your base pay. But and then like if you're doing commissions, like, okay, well, you're going to get your commission, right? And we're going to make sure that we're going to give you money so that you have money to be able to eat. And we're going to give you money so you can take care of your house. And we're going to, give you bonuses quarterly if you hit these targets. And you might say, well, yeah, sure, that's nice, Matt. Like, if we could just pay everyone all of the money, then this wouldn't be an issue. And that's not, so the thing is here, if you look at the military model, we didn't get paid very much in our base pay. The base pay is not great, but it was offset by those things. So if you reduce the amount of the base pay, but you offset it with these other things, you can actually end up paying less. So maybe they make a less of a percentage off their commission than your competitors do. And so, but let's think about this as the person seeing it, right? We're going to look at like kind of the tactical, shifting this right into the tactical. So if you structure your postings, your job postings this way, what a person's going to see and what's going to be very enticing to them is if you look at these two job postings side by side, like commissions, 25% commission and potential quarterly bonuses. Cool. Then you look at this other job posting, you're like, 17% commissions, money allocated for housing, guaranteed money for housing, guaranteed money for food, potential quarterly bonuses as well, right? Then you're like, dang, 1, 2, 3, 4, versus this 1, 2, like very bland and kind of expected. Like, oh, that's really interesting. I haven't seen that. Like, I didn't know that they could do that. And really what you might be doing is end up saving yourself a lot of money by giving them these kind of guaranteed baseline funds, and not just giving them those like, hey, here's a base salary, but like, I'm going to tell you what I'm giving you this for, right? You know what? And if you need it, like, we have the option for childcare funds as well. Boom. And you could still, like, you got to work out the numbers. You got to see if it actually works and what works for you and what you're willing to offer. But it's, then you have a fifth one in there, and child care assistance as well. All right. So it's this way to make it tangibly more enticing for that talent when they're looking at and they're comparing you on Indeed, or whatever. So, so that's kind of looking at the tactical side, right? And so then we shift ourselves into the next one, which is management and environment. And so when you're thinking about this, it's, from a strategic level, the way that your leaders and your managers operate and their management approach, it's a reflection of your business, right? Like if you've ever worked for anybody, assuming everyone here has, it's very common for you to work for somebody and they're the leader, they're your supervisor, and they're running the show from your perspective in your corner, and they're, whatever, they're brash, they curse, they are rude, and all, these, let's say, a bunch of bad characteristics of a leader, right? And you're like, oh, well, if that's who they promote into leadership, then that's what this company's about. And I don't know if I'm all about that, right? So that kind of goes back into the one that I called an outlier, like fit for the job, environment, workplace, management, fit for the job, like all of these things go into there. And so you really want to be looking at carefully selecting the people that you're bringing into management. It's very easily said, and kind of obvious, but you also want to take the leaders that you have and provide them with opportunities to grow. We talked about creating opportunities for those people without, advancement opportunities. But you want to create opportunities for growth and these same kind of novelty experiences for your subordinate leaders as well. You can if you want to set up an environment that is, conducive to people sticking around, to keeping your top talent, then you need to be encouraging your leaders to take on strategies that are conducive to that end, right? Um, you know, and you have to know your leaders. You have to know what they're good at and where they need development. They need to be developing all sorts of skills. They need to be developing, leadership skills, which is a really general, silly thing to say, but they need to be developing professional relationships with your talent, with the employees and their subordinates. And that's huge. I actually just read a research paper that was all about, in sales, and I keep using that as an example, and this does not go just for sales. This goes for every single industry out there. So, but it's just an easy one to kind of work with. But it talked about the importance of, the quality of output and performance an employee would give you when it is tied with and not tied with shared values and a relationship with their manager. When we look at this from a tactical perspective, one of the things that I've liked and that I've seen is that a lot of times the most senior leaders, the CEOs and stuff, they'll assign reading and research, like I said, for your other like lower level employees. But you do this for your leadership on it. You have a different reading list, and you can get almost like create a freaking book club, and who knows? They might actually enjoy this. You can actually turn it into something fun. You can liven it up. It doesn't have to be this like, now we're going into the conference room and we're all going to sit down. If that's the way you want to run it, do your thing. I'm all about it. But if you want to create an environment where, I don't know, maybe they can bring their spouses in. Maybe they bring the kids in and they can run around. And you bring a bunch of pizzas and everyone hangs out. And you're like, hey, we're going to talk about the book that we read. How's everyone doing? What do you think? There are ways to do this, and you can establish more rapport and relationship even with your leadership, and then you can really work on these skills that you think are important. And the beautiful thing is you set the tone, right? Like, you set the books. Like, these are the books that I think have very important skills that I want my leaders to have when they're leading my group, and they set the tone for the type of tenor that I want in the organization. And it doesn't have to just be books. Again, it can be podcasts. It could be your own stuff. You could write something up and have them read it, and then you guys can do a discussion about, like, these are the things that matter, and then have them do research. If you have company ethics or your mission statement, like, I want you guys to research stuff about this mission statement and what you think it means. And then we're going to come in and we're going to talk about it. We're going to have some pizza. Maybe we'll even drink some beers. Totally up to you. But like I said before, pro tip here, you should be, you're trying to make sure that your leaders are effectively counseling your low level talent, like your entry level talent. And one of the ways you can do that is by giving them the tools, giving them the resources in order to understand how to do that. Maybe you even bring people in who are experts. Bring in some consultants about developing relationships in the workplace. I fall into that category, but there are many of us out there that provide these types of services. And so you can do that, right? You can bring people in to have that talk, and then you guys can have a powwow about it afterwards. Like, hey, what did you guys think? Like, what did you buy into? What did you not buy into? But the pro tip here is that, we're really working on making sure that our leaders are counseling our entry-level employees effectively, but we want to make sure that you're counseling your subordinate leaders effectively as well. And so you want to, and part of an effective counseling is the counseling existing, right? Actually doing it. And we talk about this all the time. Like, counseling, we got to counsel, we got to professionally develop, we got to look at these things. This is so important. And then we never do, like, oh, it's blown away. That's, schedule this stuff in, like, put it in the calendar, put it out to everyone. Like, hey, third Friday of every month, the afternoon, we're not working. Like, we are working, but we're doing it professional development, third Friday every month. That's when you guys are going to do your counselings. And guess what? On Monday after that, I'm going to counsel you guys. Mark it in the books. We're doing it. You guys are going to show up 2 hours early. Your leaders, guess what? You have more responsibilities. You're showing up 2 hours early. or break it up however you want. Like you this day, you this day, you this day. It just depends on the size and scope of your team. You get it. I like the idea of counseling my leaders after they counsel their soldiers, because I don't want the if I have critiques, like one, they do their counselings and then I can ask them about it, right? Like, hey, how'd it go? What, like, we talked about these strategies. We had this person come in and talk to us about it. We read this book. What are you implementing? Like, what did you implement? How did that go? And then they say, oh, well, I decided to take this, and this is the way we're going to go. And this is the kind of feedback that we had. And I feel really good. Or, it didn't really hit. I've tried doing this thing. It's in like, there seems to be some space. And I'm trying to figure out how to close the gap. And then you can help counsel them to get there. Right. And that's crucial. And so I think that's huge for you to do your counseling with your leaders kind of sequentially after they do that, and because then you can have that kind of counseling. And then also, if you have critiques on them, then they don't bring that negative energy to the counseling and have that kind of negativity, that stuff rolling downhill, so we say. So and then the last one, we've really touched on this a lot actually in the first piece as well, but it's the flexibility, right? This can be related back to the autonomy, right? So I didn't use that word, but that's really what it is. When we talked about giving people the latitude to be able to operate in their own teams, that's what we're talking about. And when people are talking about flexibility, they want more hours, they want less hours, they want flexible hours. How do we do that? If we have a structure and we have this work week, like, well, what concepts are we taking in and holding, strategic level? What concepts are we taking in and holding on to that, but maybe we don't have to? Maybe we don't have to hold to, we need to be in the office 5 days a week. Maybe we don't need to hold on to the idea that we need to be out of the office forever. Maybe we have 1 day of the week in the office for, a little bit of in-person connection, because we think that that's really important. Maybe, we're leaving that autonomy up to the small teams. Like, hey, listen, we have a mission. Like, we need to sell this many widgets by this time in order to pay the bills, and we need to sell this many in order to if we have investors, then they need to see this kind of growth. Whatever the case may be, like, but lay it out to them. That's a whole other conversation. I don't want to dive too much into it. Be open with your people about why these targets exist. What are the impacts of hitting them, and what are the impacts of not hitting them? And especially when you get above your target and you say, hey, if we get this far above it, like, we're going to be able to look at expanding this division over here. Like, we're going to be able to hire some more people in for sales, and that's going to be huge. Like, we're going to, like, you guys' stress is going to be alleviated. Your income is not going to be affected, but we're just going to be able to expand, right? And your stress should be able to be reduced because we have more people doing the work. So, or maybe it's, like, you have a huge portion of people that that have families. You're like, okay, guess what? We're going to bring in-house childcare if we get to this number, right? And we're going to be able to bring them in and then have that and sustain that, but we got to get to that number. Like, think about how much that ties people into that goal. Like, I just said I didn't want to, like, dive into this, but sorry, I get passionate sometimes. Judge me. But yeah, so like I said, there was in the strategic essence of this, you have the idea of autonomy and empowerment, right? Giving people the latitude and encouragement to operate in their own way. Like, if your team says that you can work from home and you can accomplish these goals, get after it. If you guys are working weird hours that aren't aligned with a normal business day and you can hit your goals, get after it. Like, find what works for you. And my goal is to sell this many widgets, right? If those widgets get sold, I don't really care how you did it. Like, that's releasing, that's that delegation, releasing of the gripping, providing them with the autonomy and empowerment. But when we look at the tactical level, we want to really, the big thing is, like I was just saying, it's that's kind of was diving into the tactical a little bit, was we want to get the heck out of the way. We want to give them the autonomy. We want to give them the empower. We want to empower them to do this. Like, hey, listen, this is on you, baby. You got it. You need support as the sub leader. Make sure your subordinate leaders are letting your team leads that they're assigning, in this example that we've kind of been running through this whole time, make sure that they're providing them with the support they need, and checking in, so that way it's, if stuff is coming up like, hey, listen, I feel like I'm over my head. We have the system. It's feel like it's getting out of control. This person's not really contributing in the way I thought, and I don't really feel like I have the authority to do anything about it. Then you can talk about it. Then that leader, your subordinate leader, can go over there and be like, oh, let me talk to Johnny and see what Johnny's up to. Like, maybe he is screwing off at night and he's not making the calls he's supposed to. But you really want to step out of the way though and just do check-ins. It's kind of that is the tactical level here, is get out of the way. Empower your people, and you'll see that when people are tied in, when people are in charge of their destiny, most people are going to feel a greater sense of responsibility because they're the ones who made it, right? And so they can't blame poor performance on the system. Like, oh, well, you wanted me to call this list during these hours, and it's not very good, and I couldn't do it. It didn't work out well. But if like, okay, well, you're in charge of setting your hours. You're in charge of calling who you're going to call, when you're going to call them, make it happen, and then they're like, oh, I really have to work my butt off. And then if I'm not seeing results, I know I got to change something because this is on me. Like, and so there's a higher level of integrated responsibility there. And now, like I said, remember, I think it's really important to make sure that you are rotating these team leads. So in this example, and extrapolate this as needed for however you're looking to implement these ideas and these concepts. But if you're taking on this idea of you're creating opportunities for people to take on new novel roles, you rotate it, right? Like, get people in different positions, give people different opportunities, keep looking for different ways for people to step up and engage and grow and be challenged. I think that's huge. It's very important. So I know we didn't hit like every single point of the surveys, but we did kind of crush the top reasons. We aligned them. We looked at the top reasons. And really the bottom line here is that the pandemic didn't necessarily create brand new reasons why people were quitting, but it really did exacerbate a lot of the ones that were there. Kind of shifted the order a little bit. People's priorities are changing, and we're starting to see that. We're starting to see this push of a sense of belonging is missing, a sense of control over your environment is missing. And these are huge things that you can implement very easily. Like, when we look at the list, we want to take on a very stoic kind of mindset that says, I'm going to control the things I can control, right? Maybe you're a midline supervisor and you're like, I can't control how much they're being paid, right? Like, none of that's on me. I can pitch this to the boss. He's going to shoot it down. We're not going to restructure it and pay food stipends. Sorry, Matt. Like, got anything else? Like, here's the thing. That's for the CEOs. That's for the people running the show. Now, for you, if you're a midline supervisor, look at the things you can control, right? Look at what you can implement. You don't have to wait for your boss to say, hey, I think it's a good idea to do some outside research, to assign some books and do some reading. Like, you can do that. Just do it, And then if your boss has a problem with that, like, are you assigning them stuff to read outside of work? I never authorized that. Like, well, here are the books. It's about their professional development. I'm giving them opportunities to lead, and some person's going to conduct a training on this and create a presentation, and they're going to deliver it, and they're going to extol that information out to the rest of the group. Is there a problem? Like, if I'm the boss, I'm like, get it, bro. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that is exactly it. That's the energy I'm looking for. Take the initiative. Go forward. Take that step forward. You see that? Like, that's huge. That's a huge development. Oh my gosh, what I would do to have people like that working for me. But yeah, that's as the environment continues to shift, and as we start to see this transformation continue to mature, I think we're gonna have to be really focused. We're gonna have to work a lot harder to make sure that we're aware of what those trends are and why people are not sticking with their job and why people are looking for new opportunities and what is it that's keeping people there. And part of the reasons that people stay where they're at is the reasons that they're leaving. They're leaving because, the pay's better somewhere else, then you got to look at that. If they're leaving because they are looking for abilities to advance, you can create that even if you don't have a direct line of path of succession for people to be able to climb up. You just gotta think outside the box. And we gave some examples here. So, setting up systems, endorsing autonomy, focusing on empowering your talent, looking for ways to inject novelty into the system, these are the things that are going to produce significant shifts within your organization. And those are the things that are going to give you, like I said, as this transformation matures and matures and matures, that's going to be the thing that gives you the competitive advantage in this talent war over the Great Resignation and far beyond the Great Resignation. Because there's going to be a point in time when this levels out and we're going to get back to kind of normal quit rates. Maybe this is going to be a thing that's just like the new norm, is that people quit a lot more. But you can insulate yourself from that. If you're not looking to operate with a bunch of, kind of contractors or, solopreneurs and like bringing people in for particular projects and stuff like that, then and you want long-term employees that are bought into the mission, these are the things that you can do. This is a path to get there. And even if you don't take the specific tactical approaches that I provided, the strategies, like the big picture stuff, that's where you want to gear this towards. This is all backed in the IO Psych. It's all backed in the research studies. This is what the people are saying. So listen to what the people are saying and do something. Take action today. I love it. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you coming back. And I'll see you here again next week for another episode with me, Matt Lestalia. Until then, keep on doing great things. Keep on taking care of your people. Make sure that you take care of yourself too. See you guys next time.